but you have to wait for your microphone.
Exactly. I mean, I'm loud enough that I don't really need the mic. There's no problem with that. Okay, I will go ahead and open this public hearing. It is 7 o'clock on the dot. Go ahead and read the public notice as posted. Application has been received from Rick Bob 2 Corp., doing business as Fort Thomas Convenient, 42 North Fort Thomas Avenue, Fort Thomas, Kentucky 41075, for an NQ retail malt beverage license. This application has been on file in my office since a few days before the last council meeting. I've received no written complaint, no nothing on that. Additionally, this was posted in 3 places out by the convenience store at 42 North Fort Thomas. I've received no written complaint, no other complaint, no notice whatsoever from anybody. So unless anybody in the public has anything to say on this one. Okay, that's fantastic. Then as usual, I will go ahead and conclude this public hearing at 7:01 p.m. Thank you.
And I will call the meeting to order. If we can please rise and say pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Melissa, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. McIntosh? Here. Mr. Hendry?
Here.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Beazle?
Here.
Mr. Blau?
Here.
Mr. Strange is absent.
Okay. Entertain a motion for the minutes of the last meeting, please.
I'll move to approve. Receive and file. Second. Sorry, move to receive and file.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Oh, one other bit of information, visitor communications. It's Ben Hendry's birthday today. Happy birthday, Ben. Should we all sing? No. Okay. Let's move right. We're at the point of visitors and communications.
Well, before we do that, I'd like to make a motion real
Sure.
quick here. Is it on? Everybody hear me? It's getting closer. A couple things I wanted to discuss or make a motion for, and I do want council's opinion on this and how we want to move forward. With the reappointment of Dan Gorman to Planning Commission, with the fact that Councilman Strange isn't here, and I've talked to a couple people on council, McIntosh, they'd like a little bit more time in order to do their research before they make a decision on that, which I appreciate is, all the time they want to spend on that. The one thing on how the motion wants to go is I've talked to Matt about this, so people are aware of what happened was I was starting to do a little bit of research on some of our committees and appointments, and when I was doing that, noticed that certain people had to be residents to be on certain committees, and I've been talking to Matt for a while about this so we can get in line with how the committees are written and done through our ordinances. And then I noticed that they, unfortunately, Dan's was done by executive order and it needs to be voted on by a legislative body. So it made his appointment invalid. So then they needed to reappoint him to the committee. Everything he's done to this point is fine. But that being said, I want a council's opinion on this because our current planning and zoning ordinance is incorrect as it stands per KRS statute. It says that we need to have a mayor or a city council member on there and an engineer on there. And that makes our statute invalid as far as it goes. Now we can follow the state KRS statute and we're fine. It doesn't affect anything. But I'd like a motion to, to move the appointment for a month so people can do research. But we also need to check, we also need to work on the other ordinances to make sure if we'd like to keep only residences on, or perhaps people who own businesses in town, to allow them to be on our boards. And should we update at the very least planning and zoning before we make another appointment to it? So I think Matt's been working on it for a while, so I would like your opinion on how we should go forward. It doesn't affect anything if we decide to go with the appointment next month, as long as we follow the state statute at all. But sometimes I feel like it might be more proper to
So
get in line.
you're asking to table the municipal order?
I'm asking to table it, but I'm asking should we table it regardless, but also do we want to work on the correcting the ordinance before we even have a vote for this position?
Yeah, I can work with Tim to get a first reading on next month.
Yeah.
For
Maybe we can even have a
change.
special meeting to have a quick one to allow it to get done, but as I mean, does that seem right to everybody else that we should get in line?
First, just point of clarification, Adam. Tabling the Dan Gorman conversation,
Yes.
which I think we're going to do.
Yes.
Are you saying that we are in abidance with the KRS currently, but not with our own ordinance?
So we discovered this once we started taking a look at this a few months ago. Our zoning ordinance actually has the planning commission. Its requirement is the mayor has to be on it and the city engineer. We haven't done that in decades because it's not appropriate. It just has never been changed. That was part of Tim and Mai's list of ordinances that need to be updated. Nothing that's emergency, just because, you know, we're still following state statute, like Adam said. But it's definitely something we can have that written up for next month.
I'd like to work on that, maybe go to law, labor license, and I'd also like to work on, if we're doing one, we should do the other ones too, because we do have someone on the board of, which one is it? The, not Renaissance Board, I was talking about the, Design Review Board that is moving out of town. So we need to decide whether or not we want to allow someone who owns a business in town too, so I want to correct the law. All right, so does everybody agree with that? I just wanted to make sure that
So
we're on the same page.
So you're having a motion to table the municipal order?
Yes. Is it going to be until we fix the ordinance, or we just table it for 1 month?
Well, if you just, the motion should be to table it. And then depending on what happens then, you can table it again, or it may not need to be tabled. That's based on what information staff comes up with.
There you go. All right. I just want to make everybody aware of what I had found out in the audience, because I think there's been a little bit of confusion on what happened. It was a simple oversight. He was the only one that was on there, and it was an accident. So I just want to make sure people were very aware, so there wasn't any confusion on what happened.
So I do have a question. So are we gonna change it to add a council person, city engineer, and mayor, or are we gonna remove
You
that
have to
language?
take it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna remove those two and just have citizen members,
Okay.
just like we have now.
We've been doing it correctly. It's just our ordinance
Our language
says,
is wrong.
I was
Okay.
supposed to be going to those meetings and I didn't go.
Yeah.
So there.
Okay, understood, thank you.
So make a motion to table it until next month.
Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Now we're down to visitor communication. We'll start out, we have some introductions to give now.
It was very organized, and then I started losing stuff. Jake? Come on up, Jake. And Ben? So we've got 2 interns that have been working with us. You can stand there if you want. I offered for them to be able to speak tonight, but they respectfully declined. Jake is a senior at Highlands High School who plans to study mathematics at University of Kentucky. Ben is a senior at Highlands High School who plans to study business in the future. They're both enrolled in NKU's entrepreneurial mindset taught by Miss Elise Carter, and that's at Highlands. So it's a dual credit class that gives them a chance to get hands-on experience in the business world. Through this, they are learning things that can't be taught in the book, and it is an incredible opportunity for them to distinguish themselves for scholarships and/or college programs they may be applying for soon. Jake and Ben started about 3 weeks ago with the city of Fort Thomas. They've been interning on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for an hour and a half. They've worked in finance, reviewed staff responsibilities, and been working on summer events. They're working on a business plan right now to understand how businesses navigate the city's application system, so for new businesses to come in, and they're determining what needs to be in place for the city to be able to allow them to be in here and to be successful. So if you see them around, please congratulate them and welcome them to our team while they're here.
Perfect timing when you need to move furniture.
Right.
Weird how we have 2 interns right now.
That's actually how that table goes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a presentation from the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Sackenheim. I'm the current president of the Board of Trustees at the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky. I also live just down the avenue, on the corner of the avenue in Glenway. I also chair the Design Review Board. I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Several years ago, end of 2016, early 2017, my firm, I'm an architect, my firm was hired along with Chris Manning's firm to do a research project for the city on what defines a great town, a great city. Fort Thomas already checked a lot of boxes: great education, access to great jobs, access to healthcare, access to outdoor recreation opportunities. One of the things that we didn't specifically articulate in that study was access to affordable mental health care. And that's what I'm here to speak to you about tonight. You can't open a paper or turn on the news and not hear some really staggering statistics about the growing crisis of adolescent mental health in our country. This is certainly relevant to our work at the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky, but it's also touched my family very personally. My 14-year-old son, Jackson, has struggled with mental health issues for about half of his life. He has been a client at CHNK for the last 4 years. He's one of the thousands of kids from the Commonwealth that we help every year. This past week, my wife and I were in Tennessee, where Jackson has spent the last month in a residential facility. This is a type of program that we currently don't offer and that frankly doesn't exist in Kentucky. Our closest option for a credible location was 5 hours away. I count my blessings every day that I've known Mr. Worth for 30 years and that for the last 7, I've been affiliated as a board member with the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky. Our staff does amazing, really difficult, really important work, and our services are as relevant and in demand as they've ever been in our almost 150 years of existence. I sincerely hope that you'll consider our request for some support this evening so that we can continue to expand our treatment lines and help all the kids in need in Fort Thomas and across the state. I appreciate your time and attentiveness, and I'd like to now introduce the CEO of the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky, Mr. Rick Worth.
Mayor, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. I'm following up actually on a letter that I sent in July of 2022, and I had the courtesy of meeting with Mr. Kramer as a follow-up to the letter that I sent you. And we are the largest child welfare provider in this part of the Commonwealth of Kentucky at Children's Home of Northern Kentucky. We go back to 1882. We started taking care of kids who needed orphanage care in the 1800s, but Northern Kentucky doesn't need us to be an orphanage anymore. About 100 years after we were founded, we started taking care of kids who were in the custody of the Commonwealth of Kentucky because of abuse and neglect, and we're still doing that work today. So if you know us as a residential program taking care of kids in state's custody, we're still doing that. But in 2014, we obtained new state licenses because we realized something. We couldn't control the flow of more and more kids coming into state's custody in Kentucky. We even expanded a second residential campuses. We now have 3 locations in Northern Kentucky, and we have had some very tragic years in the Commonwealth in terms of, at one point, having over 10,000 kids in state's custody and out-of-home care. And so in 2014, we decided at CHNK that we had to start solving problems upstream. We got new state licenses and we started providing care in outpatient arenas. And the school districts are our #1 referral partners. It's school teachers and school guidance counselors and school principals, along with parents who are recognizing red flags for youth mental health needs. The city of Fort Thomas, you're on our top 20 list. So we provided about 1,400 treatment services to residents here in the city of Fort Thomas. I wrote a letter to the mayor because I needed help. And I'm not the kind of person that comes to government every time I need something. In fact, this is the first time I've ever come to you. We've been around for 140 years. And the reason why we've been around for 140 years is because we've gotten really good at begging from the private sector. But sometimes begging from the private sector is not enough. And in this case, it's not. I'm coming to local governments to ask for your help for the first time. Why am I doing that? Because I have 70 kids right now on our waiting list. The pandemic, even before the pandemic, there was a shortage of mental health care services in Northern Kentucky. The pandemic has only exacerbated that problem. People who are experiencing the most problem obtaining mental health services are people on a Medicaid card. And if you look at the number of Kentuckians on a Medicaid card, we surpass our neighboring states greatly with the per capita population using a Medicaid card. A lot of mental health care providers don't want to deal with Medicaid rates because you can go broke if you only serve Medicaid populations, and yet we're in the business at Children's Home of Northern Kentucky serving those exact populations, which is why I'm here tonight, noting that we were getting more and more referrals from our school districts and from places like St. Elizabeth, Sun Behavioral Health, and Cincinnati Children's. Cincinnati Children's, by the way, discharges anywhere from 25 to 35 Northern Kentucky kids every month from their psychiatric hospital division. A lot of times those kids are not ready to go back to their normal setting. We're the only game in town that offers psychiatric residential care for kids. And so we think that we have an important role to play. It's just that because 90% of all of our clients are lower socioeconomic status, I spend most of my days as CEO begging from people. And I'm here to beg from you tonight. I'm asking you that you would consider a $50,000 investment in Children's Home of Northern Kentucky. I promise you, you're not the only city I've asked. I've asked every Northern Kentucky city, and I'm going to every city based upon how many kids and how many services we've provided to that city. As I said, you're on our top 20 list. I'm hoping that you'll join the city of Covington and the city of Ellesmere and the city of Independence in making a contribution to expand our mental health services. What will this go toward? It'll go towards a $4.5 million expansion goal. And our goal is that after we raise that $4.5 million, is to increase mental health care services by, we were serving about 200 kids a year. All of those kids were living with us 24/7 in residential care. If you fast forward to last year and this year, we're serving anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000. Many of those kids still in residential, but the majority of them are now in outpatient services coming to us at the recommendations of school districts. We serve both public schools. We also have counselors and therapists embedded in the private schools associated with the Diocese of Covington. I had a PowerPoint presentation, but I heard that you're not quite up and ready with your technology yet. And so I prepared a PowerPoint for you to take home, but it clearly covers some of the sobering statistics that our board president mentioned to you about the lack of healthcare service options. You realize that across the river tonight, Cincinnati Children's is putting up a $100 million building specific to youth mental health. The Lender Center of Hope is doing a multi-million-dollar expansion for mental health services. There aren't many things happening on the Northern Kentucky side of the river. And if you look at providers who are willing to care for lower socioeconomic status Kentuckians with a Medicaid card, you won't find it to be a crowded field. I have yet to see anybody shoving me away from a podium at a city council meeting saying, Rick, no, we'll take care of the Medicaid kids. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in doing what I'm doing. So that is my proposal to you. I'm asking that you would contribute $50,000 to this $4.5 million. The city of Covington was our most recent city. They decided to put in $500,000, but they wanted it to go to specifically updating physical plant rather than to the $4.5 million. And that's perfectly fine with us because some of our facilities, I know you're in this business too, some of our facilities are quite old and needed physical plant enhancements. So I have the PowerPoint, and I appreciate your consideration, and Mr. Kramer, thanks for the meeting time that you've already given to me previously. Am I allowed to share this with you?
You can pass it around. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. All right. We have a list of
Thank you.
As you all may know, during the visitor communication, we've come up with a new system that we have a sign-in sheet over here. If you'd like to address council on any issue, you can sign up, and we will use this method in the future, now and in the future. Michael Ising? Yes, sir. Would you like to come up and address council?
Please.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mike Lising. I live at 102 Miller Lane. And I'll just read my little letter here that I just gave them a copy to, pretty much explains it. Over 150 homes from our neighborhood, including Miller Lane, Lumley, Holmes, Henry, Shaw, and Crow Hill, all must exit the neighborhood via Lumley. Okay, everybody that lives back there has to go out Lumley. There's a dangerous situation when driving out of Lumley. It is impossible to see the southbound traffic coming on Fort Thomas Avenue if a car is parked in the last spot by the corner in front of the Walk and Horse Insurance Agency at 110 North Fort Thomas Avenue. And I love Dave Walk and Horse. He's a wonderful fellow, so I don't mean that by any means. But just like tonight, when I pulled up to come here, there were people parked in every spot except the last one by the corner, and I could see all the way down almost to Highlands. But if somebody is parked in that last spot, one spot, you're totally blocked. Pulling out onto the avenue to see around one parked car in the last spot is very dangerous, because any cars that are coming southbound forces the Lumley drivers to stop while blocking the northbound traffic. If anyone would happen to have been behind the exiting car, they would have very likely pulled up behind you, so even backing up isn't a possibility many times. Conversely, if the last spot on the corner does not have anyone in it, drivers can see quite far down North Fort Thomas Avenue, thus eliminating a blind pullout into the path of oncoming traffic. By removing one parking space, and there are lots of parking spots around there, over 150 families would be able to exit the neighborhood safely. So that's all I have. I was just suggesting that for your committees to work on maybe. One spot would make a great big difference. There's a few folks from the neighborhood here if you wanted to ask them about it too. But that's all I have, and thank you very much for listening.
That makes sense.
Mike, if I can clarify real quick, you're talking about the spot actually on Lumley.
No, the spot on right in front of 110 North Fort Thomas.
Okay, okay.
And it's just that very last one by the corner that if there was no parking there, you'd be amazed how far down to the right you can see.
You're looking at the traffic coming the opposite direction, is what you're
Coming from Highlands.
Coming from Highlands. Okay.
Yeah,
You can see fine coming from your left because that's the convenient area there.
I wonder if we might be able to not lose a parking space, but shift everything towards the city building. And it may be that we might have to redo those bump outs a little bit, make that bump out bigger, and then reduce the one. If there's one down there in front of the big tree, I don't know whether there is. So we might be able to figure out where we not lose a parking space, but just shift them, because I understand what you're saying.
And I invite you to try it in your car and see what you think.
You could turn it into golf cart parking right now.
There you go.
Seriously, I mean, we get 78 now in town. So we don't have
Yeah, my daughter lived on Miller for a long time, and yes, I realize what you're saying. I didn't think to change it though, sorry. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
All right, go right ahead, Jeff. Peggy Mashio.
Thank you, but I'm not gonna speak this one.
Okay, thank you. Rick already spoke. Elizabeth Allegrini.
I'll defer until the end, thank you.
This is the
This,
time.
that's the end, okay. All right, I was waiting to see something. You're good, thank you.
Okay. Dan?
So, first of all, I would agree with what he just said about that spot. That is terrifying sometimes to get out of there, so.
Dan, introduce yourself.
So, I'm sorry, Dan Gorman, I live at 159 Tower Place. So, I wasn't sure whether or not this issue was gonna be pushed back a month or not, so since you're gonna be discussing my appointment on the commission as well as some of your policies, I thought it would be okay and maybe pertinent if I spoke. I was asked to be on the commission over 20 years ago by Jeff Earlywine and Ron Dill. They specifically asked me because they had a vacancy and because I am in the business that I'm in right now. And so they talked about having a well-balanced commission. You know, the decisions that the commission makes affect all of our citizens, and that's why you have to be a citizen to be on the commission. The decisions, the things that we talk about are kind of legally, have a lot of legal issues with them, which is why we always try to have a lawyer on the commission. And Tim's done that before in the past. They're complicated. And so we have planners and engineers on the commission, and a lot of stuff that gets talked about affects investors and business owners, which is why they try to have at least one person like me on the commission. And so I would urge you that if for some reason I'm not appointed, to try to find somebody like me or somebody that has a business that's a business owner or a real estate person to be on it, because it's important for a balanced discussion. The comments that I've heard really center around conflicts of interest. And so I guess I just want to address those, a couple of those. So, you know, one of the requirements to be on council or the commission is that you have to live in town, and this can inherently cause conflicts. When you vote on something, when we vote on something, it could cause our property values to go up or down, personally. So it could cause, I've had issues come before the commission that are friends of mine, doing developments in town and things like that. You know, Andy, your family has multiple properties in town. Lauren, you have a business in town. And your family has a business in the CBD. And so I think that, you know, the people that end up, you know, serving are passionate about the town, and passionate people not only live here, but a lot of them have businesses here and real estate here as well. So I think there's a chance that theoretically some people that are on these commissions might be doing it for ulterior motives, but I would assume that everybody's doing it because they're passionate and they care. So, you know, the things that I want to just finish up with is that over the years, if I've ever felt like there's a potential conflict, I've always sought out the city attorney, whether that be Jan or Tim, in advance, if there's even a sniff of it, and I would ask their opinion on whether or not I present the issue and ask their opinion on whether or not there was a conflict, and if there is, how I should handle it, whether I sit up there, whether I sit in the audience, or whether I leave, and I've always followed that. And then the only other thing I'll say is that, you know, as far as potential conflicts, I have one property in an R3 zone, I have one property in a PO zone, and I have one property in the CBD. There's 105 buildings at least in the CBD, and I have one property, and plus a retail condo. And so I like to think that it's helpful to all the business owners and property investors and property owners in town if they have somebody like me on the board, because I can present those. For example, if somebody comes before the commission and they're presenting an issue and it drags on a bit, and somebody inevitably will propose that we table it until the next month. And so I'm one of the people that, if I feel like if we could stick around and push through it and get a vote, so this person doesn't have to wait a month, which could potentially cost that person money, which could cause their deal to fall apart, which is stuff, you know, that I think that it's helpful to understand. And I encourage people to, you know, to stick around a little bit longer. So I think that people should be able to own a business in town, earn a living, serve if they want to serve on different committees and, you know, and boards and things like that. And then the only other thing I'll say is I've done this for 20 years. I've got a track record of never of consulting with city staff and council if there is any whiff of a conflict, and following that advice. And I'd like to continue serving if you guys will have me.
Thank you, Dan, appreciate it. All right, Pat Lance.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Mayor Ross, how are you?
Introduce yourself in,
My name is
in
Pat
your,
Lance.
in your address, please.
That's 5 Rosemont Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not mad about anything. I'm not here to vent, but I do have a few questions for you. Would you give me your birth date and your social security number?
Sure.
No?
Of course not.
All right. Let me ask you a couple.
Was that a trick question?
No, well, no, they're easy questions.
I was getting ready to tell him to take that.
Yeah. Do you have a
Well, let me-
with you?
Let me ask you a few questions. Let me ask you a few questions, and I think it'd be quickest if I just ask them in a row, okay? And then turn it over to you. Hypothetically, sir, if you're driving home tonight after this meeting and you crash your car into your neighbor's car, would you stop or would you keep driving? If your neighbor comes out to talk to you about the accident that you caused, would you blame the accident on your neighbor for parking there? Would you say this never would have happened if you had parked somewhere else? I don't think you would make that argument. If your neighbor said, hey, I trusted you not to hit my car, I trusted no one to hit my car, would you turn that around on her and say that she was partly at fault for that trust? In other words, she's partly to blame for that happening. And conversely, if your neighbor happened to record the accident because your vehicle was loud or she heard you coming, would you turn that around to her and say, you had time, instead of recording this, you should have ran out of your house, waved your arms, and prevented this accident from happening. And because she didn't, she's partially at fault. If your neighbor requests information about who was in the vehicle with you at the time of the accident, would you tell her no? Would you demand that your neighbor provide, this is the question, would you demand that your neighbor provide you with her social security number and her birth date? Would you demand that your neighbor provide you with information about her criminal history? And if she refused, would you go to court and make the judge give you that information from her? If she makes repeated attempts to resolve this without taking you to court, would you ignore her? Would you spend more money fighting your neighbor over this accident to the point where you spend more money on lawyers than it costs to fix your neighbor's car? Would you threaten your neighbor and tell her that if she doesn't accept whatever amount you're offering to resolve this, that you're going to get a judge to force her to pay all of your legal fees? Would you ask her lawyer to ask her to sign a non-disclosure agreement so to keep your neighbor quiet about all this? Or would you just say, I'm the mayor and I have qualified immunity and you can't do anything about it? Would you do all those things?
First of all, I'm not going to have the mayor answer that question, any of those
Well,
questions.
it's for him.
Wait a minute, that's all right. It's my turn right now. And
I didn't ask you.
Well, I know you did. That's all right.
Okay.
This is not a session where these gentlemen and ladies get cross-examined over different matters. If you've got a statement, I think you're making a statement, and that's fine. I think I understand what you're talking about. That's what this is about. Make your statement, but it's not an opportunity to question these folks on different items. If you have an issue and you want to bring it up, that's fine.
May I respond?
Please.
This is definitely the forum to ask questions. And, I'm trying to be polite. I don't want to be rude to you, but I do not appreciate you running interference for the mayor. The mayor is a top elected official. You didn't get any votes the last election, right?
Exactly right.
So I think if there's any forum for asking questions, this is it.
Mr. Lance, you're also talking about a legal issue that the city
The legal
is dealing with
issue,
right now,
wait a
and
minute.
that's what
No, wait a
Tim's
minute.
job to
Let me
do
finish.
is to
The
protect.
legal
the city.
issue has been settled and resolved. And I will say that I have signed away all my rights to sue anybody for bad faith. So, the coast is clear. I think we should air out the laundry here. And I don't maintain that I'm anybody special, okay? I think I'm just an average, everyday citizen. But I want to know, and maybe for each of these elected officials, do you appreciate these tactics? Because these tactics are going to be used on other residents. So on behalf of everybody who lives here, if you wouldn't do these in your personal life, why would you hire a downtown Cincinnati law firm that makes hundreds of dollars an hour to make these same arguments against Fort Thomas residents. Why would you do that?
We're not in a position to discuss these legal issues.
It's not a
If you
legal
bring
issue.
them up with me, we can have a meeting, we can sit down, we can talk about it. I'm happy to do
Is
this.
this being recorded?
Yes.
Do we have anybody from the media here? Nobody,
Sit down with me.
there's nobody here.
Mr. Lance, do you have anything else to cover tonight?
Well, I do, but I'll come back. I find it a little bit frustrating that nobody's willing to answer these questions. I'm not hostile, I'm not being rude, I'm being polite. And I think, you know, people who run for office should be able to, I mean, are you comfortable if you crash into your neighbor's car, would you turn around and blame her? I mean, that's what your lawyers did against me, and this lasted for 2 years. And like I said, I'm nobody special, so that means that you would use these tactics on everybody else. Do you find that to be appropriate?
You want to sit down with me and talk about
No,
this
I want
later?
to be,
I'm happy to.
listen, I want to be public. I want your answers to be public.
Mr. Lance, do you have any other topics tonight?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving ahead with the rest of the agenda. We are to reports of boards, committees, and commissions. The report from the Public Works Committee. Adam? You have that?
First, yeah. Okay. We met with Public Works last week. Councilman McIntosh, Ellison, and I. We decided on the street program for next year, so I'm going to read a little something that Kevin had prepared. The members of the Public Works Committee of Council have met with city staff to review and develop the city's 2023 improvement program. While there were many streets considered for improvement, we have come up with a formal recommendation for this year's program, which includes Tremont, Chalfonte, am I pronouncing that right? Chalfonte Place, Chalfonte Court, Waterworks Road, the short part between Memorial and North Fort Thomas. This Waterworks Road was done a couple years ago. The main part, Miami Parkway, Bernie Lane, and Kyle's Lane. I'm sure you guys all are aware of shape Kyle's Lane is in at this point. So, additional items include updates to sidewalks on these streets, for which the city will do the lion's share without assessments to residents. We are also asking for street audit from our engineer, storm sewer costs, share funds, repair of Rossford Bridge, and repair of curbs and sidewalks along a portion of South Fort Thomas Avenue. The total estimated budget for these improvements is just over $1.6 million. I do want everybody to be aware, though, that Kyle's Lane is $500,000 and Rossford Bridge is another $500,000, which we are using ARPA funds for. So if you're not familiar with how these programs work, we consult with a consulting firm. They go around, they label the streets, and every few years we update that. It's a fantastic program. We're able to do more streets than most, and every so often a couple streets like Kyle's Lane and this bridge come up, which costs us a little extra than we were thinking about doing. I would like to also thank the mayor and Matt for working with the city of Newport on Kyle's Lane as they did with Waterworks Road, because that when you do roads that go into other cities, not every city is willing to work with you, so we were able to complete the entire project. I believe this completes Newman, Kyle's, all the way down to Kyle's and Waterworks Road, so that corridor will finally be good for hopefully another 20 or 30 years or so. So I think it was great to work with them on that, man. Thank you for that, because that does save us quite a bit of costs. So that's all I have from Public Works.
Do you want to make a motion to accept that council so we can start the bid process and everything?
Will I make a motion?
I forgot to mention that to you.
Receive and file, is that, or is it just?
Just what I'd like is to have a motion for council to approve these streets. Because what that will do is, since our budget doesn't really start till July 1st for this next year, these will all be included next year. We do want commitment from the council that we can start prepping that, start getting drawings done so we can bid those out as quick as possible to get a better price on them. So that's.
Yeah, I think next year we're even moving that up to late this year to get ready for next year so we can.
Yeah, next year, since it's not a new council, we can do that, but this year, because of new council, I didn't want old council to approve it in December, then new council come in without that. Motion to approve the street plan.
Street plan.
As written.
Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
McIntosh? Mr. Pender?
Aye.
Mr. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, report of Recreation Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. The Recreation Committee consists of myself as the chair, Mr. Ellison and Mr. Strange. We met this week also to discuss a couple of very exciting topics, ones that have been on the agenda for a while, and we are finally moving forward. One of them, which is really nice. So the two main topics would be Tower Park, first being the Tower Park Playground. We did decide to take out of committee, bring to council the approval to spend $230,000 on the planning process for the roughly $2.3 to $3 million overhaul of the main play area. Yes, those are staggering numbers, but they're real numbers and they've been shopped around. So timeline, excuse me, the timeline would be design, place bid, August of this year, open bid, September of this year, award bid, potentially October of this year, and then construction to start after October, and hopefully sometime between November of this year through May of 24. So it's an expedited timeline as well, because there's been a lot of planning to go into this. Like I said, it's been a couple of years. So I am going to make a motion to approve the design fee for the project in order to bid the project out of $230,000 tonight. And the balance of the project will be included in the upcoming budget if approved. So that's the first topic. So I would like to make a motion to.
Now that does also include the management of the construction, correct?
I think the total construction cost, excuse me, the 2.4 to 3 includes.
It does. It also includes the management, so it's not just the design.
Right.
So the 230 includes management as well?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Is there further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. McIntosh? Mr. Pendry?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Diesel?
Aye.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Thank you.
I would like to state that this park was really well thought out, very compliant to all, to everybody in town, ADA compliant. It's really something, it's gonna be really special, and it was needed for a long time, and they did a great job of figuring out the access for everybody and usability for everyone down there.
Well,
It really is great.
to your point, I appreciate that. To your point, we probably could have started on this, had this done a while back, but because we wanted to take input from the community, the process took a little bit longer. But the input from the community was a huge piece of the playground itself. So
Made it a lot better.
yeah, we appreciate everybody who participated in that, because there's a lot of emotion and time invested in that park. So it's going to be great. Second discussion point was the splash park. So the part of the timing process over the last couple of months, the city met with the swim club to let them know, or let them decide if they would like to move forward with any type of adjustment that they would like to have down there. The swim club has decided not to move forward with any type of expansion or adjustment that they're going to have. We did have a chance to discuss that at our last parks meeting. So at this point, we are not waiting on them anymore, so that's a good thing. We reviewed the initial planning and construction bit of the existing splash park design, and after much discussion, after a lot of time, a lot of ideas going back and forth, we did decide to make a motion to explore other options at the Highland Hills Park fill area. And it did pass to come out of committee to bring to you guys as a whole to discuss other options in the fill area as opposed to move forward with Splash Park at this time.
You and Andy were, it's your committee, you want to start with what was suggested?
Yeah, so I think the motion that what would be the motion that would come out of that meeting, or we don't need a motion to come out of the meeting, right? For this topic.
So what I'm looking for from, especially with the budget coming up, is what council's wanting us to be placing into the budget, because our next step would have been placing the splash pad into the budget for next year, which would be approved by council. If that's not something that council is interested in, then I'd like you to, give it back to council, to the staff to make a couple recommendations, and then we can discuss it during budget time. I mean, some of the recommendations are pickleball down there. You know, we're already planning to have a soccer field, hopefully, of the practice field open for that area for this year after the sewer work is done. So that's any other ideas you have would be great, but that way if I can get some ideas, we can get some pricing and then present that to you for the budget.
Yeah, and I think really the conversation revolved around the want is different now than what it was when the community plan came out 8 years ago. So
We are adding one at Tower Park too, a splash pad at Tower Park.
Correct, as well too. Correct. So the splash area at Tower Park is expanded. The want in that area for a splash pad has decreased. And so we decided to open the floor up, and we wanted to bring it to council as a whole to discuss it outside of the committee to get everybody's input on what we should put down there. And if we're not going to move forward with a splash park at this time, then we can take it out of the budget at this time, so, or not put it in the budget.
I've got a couple of questions, and I appreciate the committee's work, including the previous committee, the last couple of years and beyond that, actually. But operationally speaking, and I appreciate the recommendation to council, and I think it's the right decision. Matt, I suppose, I guess the question's for you. It's a little unusual, it seems to me, to have an open discussion in council about an issue like this, which is fine. Are we looking to determine what we want to have down in that spot by a certain time frame? And my second question, are we going to make that decision in council, or are we going to make recommendations and send it back to committee to discuss those recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it'd be recommendations sent back to the committee to review. What I need is just direction, if that's what council, if they want us to look at other options other than the splash park, because we already have that option on the table. We already have that, you know, laid out, so we know the numbers. If council is wanting to see what other options are, I just need to know that so we can prepare some, have another rec committee, and kind of put that towards next year's budget.
I do want to say that it is, they say it's unusual, you say it's unusual to have the council decide to discuss it, but technically the committees are just to help streamline things. The council can discuss anything that comes out, so every kind of motion that comes out of any committee is up for discussion. We just try to trust in our committees to do the right thing, right?
Right,
So
and
they're
all
councils a whole discussions, period, if we want them to be.
I agree, Adam. All I'm saying is, generally speaking, you know, the sausage gets made in committee, and that's where the legwork gets done. And there's a recommendation from committee, whether it's parks or finance or any other committee, that comes before council. At that point, you have discussion on that issue and vote based on that discussion. This makes sense to me. I thought the motion coming out of Parks Committee, which I attended last week, was good. But it's the first time in my short time on council where it hasn't been a definitive recommendation. It was really, let's put aside the splash pad concept and let's look at all the other alternatives. Which again, I agree with that. That's fine. I'm just trying to determine the scope of what we want to do here tonight. And I think Matt answered the question.
And I think also, as Matt mentioned on the street program, we purposely delayed the street program because there's new people on council. Same thing occurs with this. The previous recreation committee and previous council was supportive of the splash park because it was a high priority in the community plan. The feeling now is that maybe that's not the way we want to go. Bringing this up at this meeting tonight gives the public the understanding now that we may not be moving forward with the splash park. So they have an opportunity to come back next month and say, no, we'd really like the splash park or whatever, or contact us or do whatever, because if there really is a change in how people feel about that, that's fine. If there's not, then those people who were supportive of it need to let us know so that we can react to that and not just be arbitrarily making a decision based on one or two people talking to us. That's my only concern, and that's why I think it's good to have this discussion.
So when talking about the splash park, the only number that I've seen is $527,000 to build it. Is that correct? So do we have a number of how much it will cost per year to maintain?
We had some preliminary numbers, but nothing.
So this would be an ongoing number of maintenance where if there's something other than a splash park, like say pickleball courts or fields, you don't have an annual expense that you can tack on to, this isn't just $527,000. That's the initial payment.
That goes with any park project. I mean,
But,
the
you know,
Tower Park playground.
Opening and closing and maintaining a splash park is no doubt a lot more than just taking a leaf blower to a pickleball court or cutting grass, because you're gonna be cutting grass anywhere. Another thing to add to that is, I don't think that there's a chance that there's gonna be enough parking down there in the congestion of having a splash pad. Another thing I'd like to say is that I don't, and this is just a belief of mine, I don't believe that and this is actually a question, can or does the city council vote on whether or not the city takes property from somebody by adverse possession?
Say that again?
Does city council vote on whether or not the city can take property from a citizen or a company by adverse possession?
That would require council action.
That would, okay.
I think as we discussed in that meeting, it went pretty well, and he made some great points, and we talked about the land swap between the swim club, and they're not really wanting that amenity down there. And this is a swap that they would be willing to do if we were to pick anything else other than a splash pad. And I think the drive for pickleball courts, and I talked to Lauren today about it, and you know, her expertise in the area for what she does for a living is bar none the best up here. You know, we all have things, and you know, as she said today, and she happened to mention the person she's been working with for 30 years has done her job, so that couldn't be a worse spot for that type of amenity. If you explain a little bit, like.
Yeah, so when I was actually up there with my dog, and, oh, sorry.
Press and hold, both start flashing red and then it'll turn green, I think.
There we go. Yeah, so I was up there and just kind of looking at that space. My biggest concern is the location. I just, for everyone's, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I own a pool company, so I know pools and spas. And, you know, when you get a heavy rain or there's a lot of trees down there, so come September and October, the maintenance is going to be something that I'm going to have a big question on, because being down in that pit, all the water running down, there's going to be a lot of debris and everything just funneling straight into that splash pad. And it's not like, I think Andy had said, you know, it's not just taking a leaf blower and blowing it off. Like, and then the opening and closing, the chemicals, everything is going up in our industry right now. So those numbers might look different than they did from 2 years ago. So that's just something to consider. I don't think it's the best location, if I'm being completely honest, for that, specifically because being at the bottom of the hill, surrounded by trees, it's gonna be a lot for the maintenance teams.
I think it is nice that the consideration was taken for Tower Park to put it up there. I think for many reasons. We have a dry playground for the kids to go to already. We have a shelter they can rent. We have bathrooms, lots of parking. But more importantly, we have Kat and Katie there all week at the mess hall. If anything does happen, because if lightning strikes, it's got to be shut down. But we have someone closer. You know, Wilder is built actually on their actual campus, which makes it a little bit easier. I think Jeff said it perfectly. 8 years ago, when this was talked about, no one had done it. Nobody had experience in the area and what kind of problems might come with it. So it sounds a lot more attractive than it is. And with the influx that we have gotten, damn, I can't believe someone's not talking about pickleball today, to be honest with you. And Andy pointed out last week, you know, you can play 10 months out of the year. It was 70 degrees last Wednesday when we were having this meeting, and that place would have been full. And it's for all shapes and sizes. And I just think that, we, and you've heard from, I think, a few people here who don't want, I think we should make a motion to just kill the splash pad in general down there and start reviewing something like pickleball courts, possibly bocce ball. Bocce ball was originally supposed to go in, I think, at shelter 3 up there where the cornhole boards were. But I think someone donated those cornhole boards, so it made sense to do that. So I just think if we're gonna get plans, I don't know if they go down there or someone else, but we just got an email about it, and I don't disagree if the cost is relatively inexpensive to add that function, because it's not one of those things that's low maintenance.
Well, at this point, since the public is just now hearing about this, I think we just share our ideas with Matt, so staff can research it some more, and we'll see what kind of input we get from the public on other ideas.
I personally think we've heard enough from the public. I'd like to make a motion just to kill the splash pad and move forward with other ideas.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there further discussion?
Plus, we also get to transfer the land with the swim club with ease.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do we vote individually or do we vote as a whole?
I just,
You don't need a roll call.
Okay,
roll call is if we're spending money.
okay.
I can do it the other way if you'd like.
No, I just want to make sure we're clear on this, so. An aye for, I'd like to move forward with that.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Did anybody vote no or everybody vote aye on that?
Everybody voted aye. We're down to reports of officers, fire department monthly report. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions.
All right, anybody have any questions for the chief? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
File.
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Police department report.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just be very brief. We had a really good month for training in January. A lot of guys got their in-service in, and also we had lots of in-house training, which was nice to see. Second, in the monthly, Officer Moore won the Governor's Occupant Protection Award. That's a very fancy way to say seatbelts. He wrote the most seatbelt tickets for our department during the time frame, so we're happy that all of our officers are out there looking for that, and that he won the award from the Governor. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration refers to wearing your seatbelt as the safest choice a driver or occupant can make. So we'll keep looking for them, and we're proud of Jeremy Moore. That was it.
All right.
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the, you can get with us after the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
You can get with us after the meeting to ask questions.
Okay.
For my update, Route 8, we are still waiting on a response from the state. We have been in contact with District 6 and awaiting a response from the Secretary of Transportation and the Governor on that. I had briefed last month on the River Commons grant with South Bank. We had decided not to apply after further discussion last month due to the situation with Route 8 and to review some of the costs associated with that grant. So that'll be something we'll revisit next year. At the city building, we are still waiting to obtain full occupancy. Our generator system is the holdup right now. We're working through some legal issues and hoping to have that resolved by next week. The budget, the staff will be meeting here in the next 2 weeks to review their requests, and then Joe will be comparing that to our revenue. Once the mayor approves the final draft of the budget, then it'll be presented to the finance committee for questions and comments, and that'll be over here the next few months, just to keep everybody updated on that. I would like to briefly discuss adding some legislation for next month, and that would be for a part-time code enforcement officer. It's a position that we don't have currently on the books, but I think it's appropriate now that we have increased our fines and we're starting to get, definitely going to be getting into spring here, and that's our busiest time. And with the staffing that we have, we don't always get to put as much time into the complaints that we do have, and the fact that we would like to get a little bit more proactive on some of the issues like grass. Currently, the position will fit into this year's budget, but I plan on including the position in next year's budget for the full year. And just wanted to get council, kind of let you guys know, I'll be sending out some more information about this position, what the position is going to be doing, things like that, and I plan on adding that as a first reading for next month for that. The last thing I have is the sewer bid for Highlands Hills Park. The bids came in ranging between $80,000 to $157,000. Originally, we were quoted $124,000, and that's when we rebid it, and we got it down to $80,000. So I am requesting to have a motion to approve that the Smith Corp. Incorporated, it's $80,710 be approved so we can begin and finish the storm and sanitary restoration for that area. That'll be done to allow us, at least in the short term, to make that into a practice soccer field, and then we can start focusing on whether we make it into other amenities down there. So that is one motion I do need from council.
Would someone like to make that motion?
Did you say blight officer? Is that what you said?
It'd be a code enforcement officer.
Enforcement, I was gonna say blight, that's, you know, that word. I just want, you have no idea how much I want to thank you for putting this on there. I've been talking about this for years. I think our city is very reactive and not proactive enough. And I think we have a lot of great neighbors, and they're too nice sometimes, so they don't know how to tattletale, let's say. So we should be doing that for them when something's awry in their yard, something's overgrown, or something's out of place there. I'm not saying that we go in there and someone puts their garbage out 2 days earlier, or couch, or the camper's on the side of their house and they're going out of town. I'm not saying that, but I think it's great to be proactive in a city as nice as ours to make sure that, you know, we do the job for them. I think this is a fantastic opportunity. I appreciate this.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to approve that.
$80,710.
Yeah, move to approve the expenditure.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to commend Matt for the work he did on that. You saved a significant amount of money from the first bid until the second bid, so nice job on that.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. McIntosh? Mr. Pendry?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mayor Petty, any questions? It's on my report.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, we have no old business, no new business. We're down to Finance Committee reports on disbursements.
I would like to, one more thing real quick, and back to the splash pad. Do we need to make any kind of motion to move forward with you to allow you to start negotiations for the land swap that we need for this project, and mainly James Avenue? Or is that something?
That's not something I'm gonna do anytime in the next few months. There's way too much other stuff to do, but it'll be something on our radar to move forward. Thank you.
Report of disbursements January 18th through February 9th, 2023. General Fund, $181,203.57. Public Works KDOT Fund, $13,181.37. CBD Revitalization, $183,200.06. Waste fees, $102,229.66. Police and Fire Pension Fund, $1,563.07. Total, $481,377.73. We, the undersigned members of the Finance Committee, recommend that warrants numbered 12444 through 12571 be approved and the treasurer be authorized to issue checks for their payment. Mr. Pendry, chairperson, Mr. Beazle, member.
Motion, please.
Somebody please.
Receive and file.
Concurrent recommendation.
That's the concurrent recommendation.
Okay, is there a second? Roll call.
Everybody's
vote,
afraid they
please.
don't know I'm not.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. McIntosh? Mr. Pendry?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison? Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
You know, we joked about Ken saying that from literally,
I
how many
know.
years? I mean.
He took care of all of it. That's good. All right, we are down to ordinance resolution orders. Ordinance 01-2023, setting a time and location of the council meeting. We're gonna be here instead of there.
Ordinance 001-2023, an ordinance fixing the time and place of holding all regular meetings and all standing committee meetings of the Board of Council of the City of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky.
I wanted to have a quick discussion about this and everything.
Let's
We
get a motion.
Second.
Let's get a motion first.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, it's quick. I talked with Matt a little bit about this today and even mentioned it to Andy. These meetings come late at night at 7 o'clock on Mondays. We talked about possibly moving it up a little earlier, 6:30, just to give everybody a little bit of a break. I know there's some people, they have, you know, everybody's got families here and things to do, and everybody here, especially administration, starts at 6, 7 in the morning, and they're here till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I didn't know how the council felt about moving it up a little bit in time to give everybody a little bit of a break and give us time to go home and wind down. Some of these meetings can go long and get home at like 10 or 11, and you have to get up early with kids and whatever else that you may have. So I just didn't know how.
I
people
agree. I
felt
think
about
we should
that.
ask the staff. Would you guys like
Yeah,
that?
there you go. There. I mean, you'll say whatever council would like.
I'm fine with either way, but if,
It used to be 8 o'clock and twice a month. So I got it to 7 o'clock and once a month, so.
Once a month is appreciated.
Yes.
From the staff.
Yeah, once a month is much better because the staff can get a lot more work done. What was happening when we were having twice a month is they'd have like 1 week to do research and then another week to try to get ready just to have a meeting. And we were out within 15 or 20 minutes most of the time because there wasn't enough on the agenda. So going to 1 meeting a month has helped dramatically, but you're right, sometimes it goes longer. I don't think we've been here till 10 or 11 lately, but it's possible. You know, we could change it to 6 or 6:30 if you.
I'm just suggesting it, I'm just trying to help them out or else.
Yeah, I think, what do you guys, seriously, I think.
Honestly, it all, no matter what time it is, it's, you know, we either have to deal with trying to eat an early dinner, late dinner. It's really no.
Well, we
go
do
unless you
have-
want to make a decision on the meeting time.
We do normally have committee meetings at 6:15 prior to council meetings.
Oh, it does
So
give
if
us
we
more
get
time.
back on that system, although when we switched from 2 meetings a month to 1 meeting a month, we did tell the previous council, we haven't told you all this, but we tried to keep the first Monday of the month open on our calendars to use that for committee meetings. So that didn't always happen and it didn't always work for everybody, but that was kind of the intent since we were used to doing the first and third Mondays every month, so we kept that. And there is 2 meetings in June, 2 meetings in September because of budget and the tax issues, so.
Okay. I'm fine with 7, I just was throwing it out there if anybody was interested in it, so.
Yeah, we can
Sounds
do
like
it.
we're keeping it at 7. Unless anybody on council wants to.
Daddy's home doing bedtime right now, so.
Maybe it's more of a blessing, I don't know. Is he watching right now?
Oh, yes.
I know Devin is for sure, so Ben's not gonna answer.
We have a motion and a second, we've had discussion, it's still at 7 o'clock, the change is just the location, everything else is the same. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, ordinance 02. Oh, we do? Oh, on any ordinance. Any ordinance, oh my gosh. I should know this by now, shouldn't I? Okay, roll call vote, please.
We did it. Ms. McIntosh? Aye. Mr. Petrie?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Weasel?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
Look, the results are the same.
That's amazing.
That's so too.
Ordinance 0022023, an ordinance enacting and adopting a supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Thomas, Kentucky.
Any motion to approve? I'll move to approve. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. McIntosh? Aye. Mr. Petrie?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Weasel?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 003.
Ordinance number 003, 2023, an ordinance confirming the city engineer's estimate of the cost of the improvement and certificate of apportionment for the improvement of Wilbur's Lane from its intersection with Highland Avenue to its intersection with Grand Avenue, located in the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and in accordance with the plans and specifications thereto as submitted by the city engineer and as approved by the Board of Council, approving and levying a special assessment against the abutting property owners and providing for its payment, directing the city clerk to publish an abstract of this ordinance, directing the city treasurer to prepare and distribute the assessment bills, requiring all abutting property owners to pay the improvement assessment.
All right. Any motion? Is there a second? Any discussion or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. McIntosh? Aye. Mr. Petrie?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Weasel?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
All right, now we're at ordinance 04.
004, 2023, an ordinance confirming the city engineer's estimate of the cost of the improvement and certificate of apportionment for the improvement of Altamont Court from its intersection with Bivouac Avenue to its terminus, Avon Place from its intersection with Summit Avenue to its intersection with Edgewood Drive, Bivouac Avenue from its intersection with South Fort Thomas Avenue to its intersection with Bivouac Point, Carolina Avenue from its intersection with Tremont Avenue to its terminus,
Garden Way heading north from its intersection with Holiday Lane to its terminus, Glenway Avenue from its intersection with South Fort Thomas Avenue to its terminus, Hawthorne Avenue from its intersection with Alexandria Pike to its intersection with the Hawthorne Extension, Linden Avenue from its intersection with South Fort Thomas Avenue to its intersection with Carolina Avenue, Linden Court from its intersection with Linden Avenue to its terminus, Rossmore Avenue from its intersection with South Fort Thomas Avenue to its terminus, Summit Avenue from its intersection with Grand Avenue to its intersection with Avon Place, and Tower Hill Road from its intersection with North Fort Thomas Avenue to its intersection with Watch Point Drive, all in the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and all in accordance with the plans and specifications thereto as submitted by the city engineer and as approved by the Board of Council, approving and levying a special assessment against the abutting property owners and providing for its payment, directing the city clerk to publish an abstract of this ordinance, directing the city treasurer to prepare and distribute the assessment bills, requiring all abutting property owners to pay the improvement assessment.
I missed some of that, Tim, could you?
You can do it again next month, too.
That's right. That's the first reading. We'll hear the second reading next month. So, no motion necessary for that. We're down to, okay, we tabled the municipal order, so we're down to resolution R01-2023.
A resolution of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, opposing the passage of Senate Bill 50 and House Bill 50 relating to partisan local elections.
Yeah, can I ask a question now on this?
Let's make a motion in a second, and then you can.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, so is this just says that we don't support the bill? Does that mean, do we have to follow state regs if this passes?
Yes.
If this passes, we are required to do that. We have the option to do it now.
Yeah.
This has been a big fiasco. Kentucky League of Cities, everybody's against it. A bunch of cities are coming out because it's just gonna cost us more money. We'd have to do, yes.
So as opposed to telling them we don't want to do it, we're putting it as a resolution showing them that we don't want to do it.
Yes, and then it'll be sent down to.
Yeah.
Will someone explain what the bill is? I don't know if everybody is familiar.
The bill is requiring that any local election, judges,
School boards.
everybody has to have a partisan election, which means you have to have, primaries, yeah, see, we've never had to do primaries, so I didn't worry about that. You have to go through primaries, you have to claim what party you're in, and, you know, what I've loved about being at a local level is it's nonpartisan, and we just work to try to improve our lives in our city, but it's not political, but evidently there's some folks down in the state that want to require everybody to do it.
So I think it's great that we put this together as a city. One voice, I appreciate that.
All right, any other concerns? Okay, roll call, let's see, a resolution, does that need a roll call vote, or can we just?
No, you do not need a roll call.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. We are,
Okay.
yes.
Yep. Mayor Hoss, I'd like to make a motion pursuant to KRS 61.810 to enter executive session to conduct discussions regarding collective bargaining negotiations between a public employer and their employees.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call or not? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going into executive session in the other room. You're welcome to stay here. You're welcome to leave. We will come back into the room when we're done with the executive session to just adjourn the meeting. I don't know whether there will be, I doubt that there will be any action. No action will be required tonight, so we will not be coming back in and taking any action. So basically the meeting's over. That was a long way to say the meeting's over.
Well, we do have a question from somebody in the gallery, so do we answer that now, or?
We can just do that.
Whenever it's been set up, I'll.
Okay.
So, we are.
Not as a whole, it was, had to be done in the beginning with business communications, so.
But wait a minute, this is not the place to ask questions, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll come back. We'll set up a meeting. No need. No need to come back to me.